The origins of the Teutonic Order, formerly the Order of Brothers of the German House of St. Mary in Jerusalem, lie far removed from the frozen forests of the Baltic, tracing their lineage back to the sun-scorched plains of the Holy Land during the Third Crusade. Founded around 1190 by German merchants from Bremen and Lübeck during the Siege of Acre, the order initially served as a modest hospital fraternity dedicated purely to caring for sick and wounded German pilgrims and crusaders, fulfilling the charitable pillar of its future existence. By 1198, recognizing the existential need for military protection and permanence in the highly contested Levant, it was dramatically transformed by papal decree into a full-fledged hybrid religious military order, modeled organizationally on the established structures of the older Templars and Hospitallers. They adopted a rule that combined the Benedictine-like charitable duties and communal living with the armed defense of the faith. Its members, who committed themselves to perpetual monastic vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, were rigorously divided into three distinct classes: the ordained priests, who ministered to the spiritual needs of the brothers and settlers and celebrated Mass; the lay brother servants, or sergeants, responsible for vital logistics, supply management, trade, and manual labor; and the core fighting force, the fully armored knight brothers, drawn almost exclusively from the lower and middle ranks of the German nobility. These knight brothers, instantly recognizable by their distinctive white surcoats emblazoned with a bold black cross, formed a tightly knit, highly disciplined cavalry elite that prioritized communal obedience over individual chivalric glory. However, by the early 13th century, with the progressive decline of the Crusader states in the Levant following repeated setbacks and the increasing cost of maintaining distant garrisons, the Order's strategic focus began shifting decisively toward Europe, seeking new stable fields for its mission of conversion and defense of the Christian frontier. After a brief and spectacularly failed attempt to settle in Transylvania, where they were invited to defend the eastern borders of the Kingdom of Hungary against the Cuman tribes, only to be summarily expelled by the Hungarian king for attempting to establish independent fortifications and exceed their limited feudal authority, the Order was presented with a defining opportunity in the Baltic that would forever redefine its purpose and history: the invitation to Prussia. In 1226, Conrad I, Duke of Masovia in Poland, found himself militarily exhausted and politically desperate. He requested the Order's assistance to defend his borders against the relentless, devastating raids of the pagan Prussian tribes, the Aesti, who inhabited the heavily forested lands along the southeastern coast of the Baltic Sea and tenaciously clung to their native deities and rituals. The Prussians stubbornly resisted all attempts at Christianization and constantly harassed their Christian neighbors, making them a legitimate and compelling target for a perpetual crusading order in the eyes of the papacy. Grand Master Hermann von Salza, a highly effective diplomat and close advisor to Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II, was instrumental in transforming this local Polish request into an overarching imperial opportunity. He accepted the offer, but only under the crucial condition stipulated in advance and confirmed by the highest secular and spiritual authorities, that the Order receive absolute and sovereign control over any lands it conquered. This condition was confirmed first by the Golden Bull of Rimini, 1226, from the Emperor, which granted the Order the right to rule the Prussian lands in Imperium, and later by papal assent. This laid the essential legal and spiritual groundwork for the creation of a semi-independent monastic state, or Ordensstaat, directly subordinate only to the Pope and the Emperor, bypassing any Polish or local feudal authority. Starting with a small foothold at Kulm, Chełmno, the Order launched a systematic, decades-long military enterprise known as the Prussian Crusade, employing superior organization, strict iron discipline, and relentless siege warfare against the decentralized tribal and clan-based structure of the Prussians. The conflict was not a swift victory. It was a brutal and prolonged war of attrition, characterized by massive cycles of revolt, most notably the Great Prussian Uprising, 1260–1274, which saw the native population fiercely attempt to throw off the conquerors in the wake of the crushing defeat of the Crusaders at Derb. The Order, however, was sustained by a constant influx of guest crusaders, European knights fulfilling vows, and utilized a methodical, overwhelming military strategy, gradually suppressing the native resistance, establishing German control over the entire region, and systematically forcing Christianization. Simultaneously, a parallel order, the Livonian Brothers of the Sword, was operating further north in Livonia, modern Latvia, and Estonia, fighting the native Livs, Estonians, and Latgalians. After the Livonian Order suffered a catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Seoul in 1236, the remnants were absorbed into the Teutonic Order in 1237, consolidating control over a massive unified stretch of the eastern Baltic coast, stretching from Pomerelia to the Gulf of Finland, a territory known as the Terra Mariana. The core of the Order's power was its highly organized monastic state, which was arguably the most centralized, efficiently managed, and bureaucratic political entity in medieval Europe. The strategic placement and construction of fortresses was a defining characteristic of the Teutonic state, essential to their administrative and military success. The castles were not just defensive works built to ward off attack. They served simultaneously as administrative centers for governance, secure storehouses, and supply depots for military expeditions, and as launching points for further military excursions into unchristianized lands. Built predominantly of red brick, a hallmark of the region's distinctive Gothic architecture, these fortresses were constructed with a systematic approach, often following common, highly functional architectural plans that ensured standardization, rapid assembly, and efficiency, reflecting the Order's methodical approach to conquest and control. Castles like Marienburg-Königsberg and the smaller but numerous Comtor castles projected visible power and control, acting as magnets for German immigrants, which further consolidated the Order's territorial gains by gradually replacing the subjugated Prussian population with loyal tax-paying German, Dutch, and Flemish settlers, effectively Germanizing the newly acquired lands through controlled colonization and the establishment of new towns under German law. The Order also actively leveraged its close and mutually beneficial economic ties with the Hanseatic League, a powerful confederation of North German trading cities that dominated trade routes across the Baltic and North Seas. The ports under the Order's control, such as Danzig, Dansk, Elbing, Elbląg, and Königsberg, became vital, highly regulated hubs within the Hanseatic network, facilitating the massive export of Prussian commodities like surplus grain, timber, particularly vital for shipbuilding, valuable amber, and furs. This tight relationship provided the Order with immense tax revenue, preferential access to international markets for selling its own agricultural produce, and crucially, a secure supply of foreign currency and high-quality manufactured goods and military equipment, underwriting the Order's continuous military expenditures and ensuring the steady migration of German settlers and the consistent recruitment of crusading guests who often traveled through Hanseatic ports. Politically, the Teutonic Order exerted a disproportionately large influence across Northern Europe. Its role as the self-proclaimed vanguard of the Northern Crusades against the last pagan strongholds of Europe, particularly the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, attracted thousands of Western European knights and noblemen, known as guest crusaders, who traveled great distances primarily from France, England, and the Holy Roman Empire for military experience, honor, and religious merit, often bolstering the Order's forces during major campaigns, especially the annual winter raids, Ryzen into Lithuanian territory. The Grand Master thus held significant diplomatic clout, negotiating directly with popes, emperors, and kings, and establishing treaties and alliances that ensured its legal and political independence from both the Holy Roman Empire and its immediate neighbors. This relentless expansion, however, inevitably brought the monastic state into direct and prolonged conflict with the rising Christian powers of the region, primarily the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The annexation of Pomerelia and the vital port of Danzig by the Order in 1308, territory forcefully taken and claimed by Poland, created a century-long intractable dispute that would define their relationship as one of perpetual rivalry, often focusing on maritime access and control over the Vistula trade route. Furthermore, Lithuania, though a long-time primary pagan target of the Crusades, strategically altered the entire geopolitical situation through the Union of Krzywo in 1385. Which saw the Grand Duke of Lithuania Jogaila marry the Polish Queen Jadwiga and formally adopt Christianity for his realm. This unified Christian Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth removed the Order as primary ideological pretext for its very existence, the continuous crusade against paganism, and created a formidable unified Catholic rival that viewed the Order not as a holy bulwark, but as an aggressive, avaricious neighbor whose immense conquered landholdings were rightfully Polish and Lithuanian territory. While this conflict would later culminate in the disastrous defeat at Grunwald, the decades preceding it were filled with intense diplomatic maneuvering, arbitration by the papacy and the emperor, numerous border skirmishes, and profound political tension, as the order stubbornly defended its territorial integrity and political status against its now unified and significantly more powerful adversaries, setting the stage for a dramatic and inevitable shift in the balance of power in Eastern Europe and marking the beginning of the end for the independent power of the Ordensstaat.